I read 31 books last year, 4 this year, and these are my favorites. Hey guys, welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to do a different video than usual. I wanted to do a books video. I posted this one video on TikTok about a book I've read this year and it blew up. So I thought if the people want to see the books I've read, I will talk about the books I've read. My credentials are I read 31 books this year, 34 books last year, and I've read 4 books this year. I will first start by giving you 4 of my favorite books from last year, and then I'll explain and describe the books I've read this year, why I've liked them, what I rate them, and all that jazz. And then I'll tell you about the books that I'm currently reading right now / what I'm planning to read. Let's get on into the video. The first book I'm going to recommend to you was my favorite book of last year, and it is honestly still one of my favorite books. Drum roll, please. I'm actually expecting you to do this drum roll with me. If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. I don't even think anyone understands how good this book is. So this book actually was the first murder mystery book I've ever read. I am definitely an avid romance girly. That's usually what I'm reading. So I was like, okay, let me jump out of my comfort zone and read something else. And this book was amazing. So let me read you the blurb. And I'm going to be reading the blurb for all the books I recommend, just so you guys get the idea of the books. Oliver Marks has just served 10 years in jail for a murder he may or may not have committed. On the day he is released, he's greeted by the man who put him in prison. Detective Colburn is retiring, but before he does, he wants to know what really happened a decade ago. As one of the 7 young actors studying Shakespeare at an elite art college, Oliver and his friends play the same roles off stage and off. Hero, villain, tyrant, temptress, ingenue, extra. But when the casting changes and the secondary characters usurp the stars, the play spills dangerously over into life, and one of them is found dead. The rest face the greatest acting challenge yet, convincing the police and themselves that they are blameless. Like, does that... I feel like that literally tells you enough. Like, I feel like I don't need to convince you to read this book because it's so good. It's so good. But you know what actually drew me into this book the most was the writing. As I said, I'm an avid romance reader. I love romance books. I love them to bits. But sometimes the storyline is good, but the writing is just like... So after reading a bunch of romance books, back, I picked up this book and I was blown away because the writing was so beautiful. I just think it was beautifully done, and the way everything kind of came together, you could tell it was really thought out and really well planned. Plus the actual mystery was just so captivating. Like, did he murder him? Did he not? And if not, who did? Like, it was just so fun. And the next book is The Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. So for some context, I am an avid fantasy romance book reader. Actually, for a while, it was the only thing I actually read because I just loved it so much. Like, a book that really got me into reading was one of these types of books, and I actually just stuck with it throughout my adolescence, teenage years. I read The Court of Thorns and Roses, the Six of Crows series, the Hush series, the Folk of Air series, or more commonly known as the Court Prince series, The Dance of Thieves, way before TikTok had ever even mentioned these books. Not to be like, oh yeah, not like other girls, I read it before TikTok, but I kind of did actually with this one. With these books, I actually did, but it was just because I loved them so much, and I was always just on the look and the hunt for more romance fantasy books. So when I was working at a summer camp this summer, and one of the girls I was looking after told me, you should read this book, The Fourth Wing. I was like, all right, and I'm so glad I did. Let me stop rambling on and just read the blurb. Enter the brutal and the elite world of a war college for dragon riders from the USA. Today, best-selling author Rebecca Yarros. 20-year-old Violet Sorrengail was supposed to enter the scribe quadrant, living a quiet life among books and history. Now the commanding general, also known as her tough as Talon's mother, has ordered Violet to join the hundreds of candidates striving to become the elite of the Navori dragon riders. But when you're smaller than everyone else and your body is brittle, death is only a heartbeat away because dragons don't bond to fragile humans. They incinerate them. With fewer dragons willing to bond than cadets, most would kill Violet to better their own chances of success. The rest would kill her just for being her mother's daughter, like Xaden Riorson, the most powerful and ruthless ringleader in the Riders Quadrant. She'll need every edge her wits can give her just to see the next sunrise. Yet with every day that passes, the war outside grows more deadly. The kingdom's protected wards are failing, and the death toll continues to rise. Even worse, Violet begins to suspect leadership is hiding a terrible secret. Friends, enemies, lovers, everyone at Baskia War College has an agenda, because once you enter, there are only two ways out: graduate or die. Again, I feel like these blurbs are just like, they get it, because this book has everything. Enemies to lovers, a brooding dog love interest, but also some really cool world building and some dragons and fighting, and I don't know, like what's more to love. I'm really excited to read Iron Flame, which is the next book in the series. I know, I'm late. That book came out in November. I should have read it by now, but yeah, that book was honestly so amazing. So if you like any of that, read it. Okay, so the next book I'm going to talk about is completely different to the other one, which I'm kind of realizing the books are quite different, so I'm kind of glad about that because it means I'm having some variety in my reading. But anyways, is Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry. So last year I wanted to make a point of reading books that had Black main characters, and this was honestly one of my faves. Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry is by debut author Joya Goffney. I'm really sorry if I mispronounced that name. Is the story of an over-enthusiastic list maker who's blackmailed into completing a to-do list of all her worst fears. There's a heartfelt, tortured contemporary YA high school romance with epistolary elements. Quinn keeps lists of everything, from the day she's ugly cried to the things that she would never admit out loud, to all the boys she'd like to kiss. Her lists keep her sane. By writing her fears on a paper, she never has to face them in real life. That is, until her journal goes missing. An anonymous account posts one of her lists on Instagram for the whole school to see and blackmails her into facing 7 of her greatest fears, or else her entire journal will go public. Quinn doesn't know who to trust. Desperate, she teams up with Carter Bennett, the last known person to have her journal. In a race against time to track down the blackmailer, together they journey through everything Quinn's been afraid to face, and along the way, Quinn finds the courage to be honest, to live in the moment, and to fall in love. One thing I loved about this book was just about how realistic it was about the Black experience, but also about like so many other things. It was just so raw and honest about being a Black teenage girl, but it was just so well done. It was so beautiful, talking about heartbreaks, both relationships and friendships alike, and also had the mystery again, which you can say I like, but mystery of solving who took her journal. I really liked how the book talked about facing your fears, like it even mentioned it in the blurb, and how she was growing as a person throughout the book. Like you could see the character change, but I won't talk about more of that because I feel like I'll spoil the book, but I just feel like it was really good. And really raw and vulnerable, and yeah, and I felt like you laughed with the characters, you cried with the characters. It was just such a well-rounded experience. The next book I want to talk about is The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic. I actually read this book around Halloween because I was just reading like a bunch of books to do about witches and magic because of the theme of Halloween. I just wanted to get in the vibe and the mood, and honestly it worked, but this was one of those books. I really did enjoy it because I just related so much to the main character, Sadie. Not in experiences, but just in her. But let me read the blurb. For fans of Practical Magic and Gilmore Girls, The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic is a debut novel that explores the shields we build around our heart to retain our own magic. Sadie Rebelair has always believed that the curse of 4 heartbreaks that accompanies her magic would be worth the price. But when her grandmother is diagnosed with cancer, with only weeks to live, and her first heartbreak, Jake McNeely, returns to town after a decade, her carefully structured life begins to unravel. With the news of their their grandmother's impending death, Sadie's estranged twin brother Seth returns to town, bringing with him deeply buried family secrets that threaten to tear Sadie's world apart. Their grandmother has been the backbone of their family for generations, and with her death, Sadie isn't sure she'll have the strength to keep the family and her magic together. As feelings for Jake begin to rekindle and her grandmother growing sicker by the day, Sadie faces the last of her heartbreaks, and she has to decide, is love more important than magic? This book is so amazing because it just talks about the pain that come from familial relationships and like family and stuff like that. I also related because I am a twin, and I feel like any book with a twin, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna read that. It also talked a lot about depression and anxiety and the need for having control in your life. Sadie wants this control. She needs it so much, and I can relate in so many ways, and I know that other people can too. I don't know, I really resonated with her pain, and I just really felt so moved by this book. So on to the next category, the books I've read this year. But the first book I'm actually starting off with is a self-help book. This is a book I actually started reading online, and I was like, I need this in person, so I'm gonna get it. This is Be Not Afraid of Love. I saw the title and I was like, maybe I need to read this book. But this is the first self-help book that I've actually ever read, and I think it'll be my favorite for a while. Let me read the book. In their 20s, queer Chinese-Australian writer and artist Mimi Zhu was a survivor of intimate partner abuse. This left them broken, in search of ways to heal and find love again. They found that in words, in sharing their own intimate encounters with oppression, healing, joy, and community. Mimi invites readers all over the world to reflect deeply in their own experiences with the intention of acting as a guide to undoing the hurt or uncertainty within them. This book is a continuation of that relearning, exploring the intersections of love and fear in self-esteem, friendship, family dynamics, and romantic relationships, and extending out to its effects on society and the greater political realm. Mimi's powerful and provocative words will guide and inspire readers to lean into love with softness. Heart-rendering and revolutionary, Be Not Afraid of Love is a testament to the strength and adaptability all humans possess, and a tribute to love in all its forms. This book honestly helped me realize so many things about myself. I've never been in a romantic relationship, much less an abusive romantic relationship, and yet I could relate and learn so much from her writing. I will say trigger warning for anyone who has, because obviously this book does talk about that. So this year I've started writing little reviews on Goodreads. Here's my review for this book. It's kind of funny reading this out loud, but anyways, OMG, this is my first time writing a book review, but wow, this book is incredible. I have never been through an abusive relationship, but I have definitely had my fair share of toxic friendships, feelings of abandonment, and have had an innate fear of romantic love because I've never experienced it. But this book was so relatable and real. I feel like I've learned so much from this book, and I've had so much self-realization through reading it. So it's safe to say I love this book. I just feel like everyone should read this book. I've learned things about how I treat my friendships, family, and even started to think about like the different societal structures that and how they impact and affect the way we view ourselves in relationships, but in like different ways that I'd never really thought about before. Okay, so the next book is literally a fan favorite. Like, I've heard so many people talk about this book. It is Legend Porn. This book is another like romance fantasy book with a black main character this time. So it's like tying in like so many of the different things I love. After her mother dies in an accident, 16-year-old Bree Matthews wants nothing to do with her family memories or childhood home. A residential program for bright high schoolers at the UNC Chapel Hill seems like the perfect escape until Bree witnesses a magical attack her very first night on campus. A flying demon feeding on human energies, a secret society of so-called legend porn students that hunts the creatures down, and a mysterious teenage mage who calls himself a Merlin and who attempts and fails to wipe Bree's memory of everything she saw. The mage's failure unlocks Bree's own unique magic and a buried memory with a hidden connection. The night her mother died, another Merlin was at the hospital. Now that Bree knows there's more to her mother's death than what's on the police report, she'll do whatever it takes to find out the truth, even if that means infiltrating the legend porn as one of their initiates. She recruits Nick, a self-exiled Legendborn with his own grudge against the group, and their reluctant partnership pulls them deeper into society's secrets and closer to each other. But when the Legendborn reveals themselves as the descendants of King Arthur's knights and explain that a magical war is coming, Bri has to decide how far she'll go for the truth and whether she should use her magic to take society down or join the fight. So, this book, it was so good. So good. I'd actually started reading it ages ago and I couldn't actually get into it. I will say the first couple pages, maybe the first chapter or two, just weren't doing it for me. I just kept trying, but like I knew that people will rave about this book. I'd heard about it so many times and I was like, oh, I should probably read it. So I kept stopping and starting till I finally actually got to it. I'm not gonna say that it's that boring in the beginning. I think it was just me. I just wasn't in the mood for this book, but I'm so glad I read it because it's so good. I really liked the way she was black and how they used that within the story. It's not like she just for like diversity or something, but like it actually adds to the story as well, and not in a in-your-face annoying kind of way. But it is a few hours later. It is now much darker. Basically, I ran out of storage on my phone. It was just taking a lot of time to move things onto my laptop. So anyways, I'm back. To finish talking about the Legendborn, I liked how she wasn't black just for the sake of being black. The way like it actually added to the story and it added some depth and character to the main character. The next book that I read was White Nights. It's actually like a short story. I actually did a TikTok about it and that's the one that blew up, the one I was talking about at the beginning of this video, because Jack Edwards, like the famous book talk guy, recommended it and it's so good. I'm actually not gonna talk about this book. I'll refer you to my TikTok video because shameless self-plug on TikTok, but also because I think I explained all my thoughts and feelings in that video very well and don't really see the need to repeat myself. Let me just read the blurb. White Nights is a short story by Theodore Dostoevsky that was published in 1848. Set in St. Petersburg, it is the story of a young man fighting his inner restlessness. A light and tender narrative, it delves into the torment and guilt of unrequited love. Both protagonists suffer from a deep sense of alienation that initially brings them together. A blend of romanticism and realism, the story appeals gently to the senses and feelings. That's exactly what that book is. Exactly what it is. It's just so beautiful and it's about unrequited love. Let me read my initial review that I made right after I finished the book. This book was amazing. So heartbreaking yet so beautiful. I relate so much to the main character, so much honestly that it hurts, but it was amazing to see these feelings of unrequited love being portrayed in this short story. The ending left me speechless and upset, but in the best way. I am still thinking about it and I love this so much. The final book that I've read this year is The Thursday Murder Club. This book is so amazing. It's another murder mystery, as you can tell, but it's about old people. I've honestly never read a book about old people, like the main characters being old people. It's kind of what makes this book so amazing because the characters are like, they're realistic in the way that they're old, like say what's on their mind. They don't care what people think and they get away with things kind of because they're old. And I had so much fun reading this. Honestly, so much fun. Like I highlighted like so many different things in the book trying to guess who committed the murder, and then more stuff happened and I just was like highlighting and then crossing people off my list, like, oh, that means you can't do it, oh wait, that means you couldn't do it. Honestly, it has so much fun. Like the book was just light to read, not that realistic, I can't lie, because some of the stuff was a bit like, this would happen in real life, but it was still so fun. Like there's the joy of like trying to solve the murder as the characters are trying to solve the murder, because I feel like if we were villains, I can't lie, that was quite more of a dark book. This is more like lighthearted and comedic. In the blurb it says, in a peaceful retirement village, 4 unlikely friends meet up once a week to investigate unsolved murders. But when a brutal killing takes place on their very doorstep, the Thursday Murder Club find themselves middle of their first live case. Elizabeth, Joyce, Ibrahim and Ron might be pushing 80, but they still have a few tricks up their sleeve. Can our unorthodox but brilliant gang catch the killer before it's too late? Like, it's just, it was so good. I actually started reading it because I'm in a book club at my uni and they were reading this book, and honestly I'm so glad I did because I would have never picked it up otherwise. It just wasn't a book I've ever heard of or like looked into, but it was so amazing. Yeah, and then my book review. This book was so good. I loved all the plot twists and figuring out who the murderers were within the book. It was so cool to have a book written from the view of old people. I've never read a book like that, and it was so well done. I loved the multiple point of views. They really added to the whole experience, and I was all very excited. I'm so glad I read it. But yeah, so that's all the books I have read and the books I read last year. Now, let's talk about the books I'm reading now. I'm reading Pride and Prejudice right now. I actually started reading this book years ago, like years ago, but I never finished it. I am on page 225 of 325. Oh, I have exactly 100 pages left. So I'm gonna try and finish this book this year because I actually need to get over with, and hopefully this month because again, I just want to get over with. And I do love the film. I've rewatched the film probably 500 times. Like, okay, that's an exaggeration, but like probably the realistic amount of times I've actually watched it is probably like close to 20. Like not even lying, like not even true. Like I love that movie, so I'm like, okay, let me finish the book. The second book I'm reading right now is Atomic Habits. I also made a TikTok about this book because I've heard this book is like the book if you want to build healthy habits and like grow in different ways and succeed in different things and just become the version of yourself that you want to be. I am now on page 73 of 271. So far, I'm really enjoying it. I feel like I'm learning so much already. And then the third book is The Great Gatsby. I briefly started it, like very briefly, probably like the first like 5-10 pages. And then I want to read Iron Flame, the second book to the fourth wing. Self-explanatory is the next book, and also the next books in the Legend Born series, also self-explanatory. But yeah, that concludes my review. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've really enjoyed talking about books. If you want any more reviews or anything else, or if you just like this video and you want me to do more videos like this, just talking and sitting down, I will, because it's fun. Especially about books, because like I said, I love reading. But anyway, thanks for watching this video. Please tell me any book recommendations if you've made it this far in the video. Tell me loads of book recommendations. I would love to read more. The past 2 years, I've had the goal of reading 50 books in a year. I haven't reached that goal even once. I keep getting to like 30, like around 30. So the more books you give me, the better. And I will talk about them if you want me to. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got some good book recommendations. If you're reading anything along with me, like if you're reading some of the series, tell me what you think about them. I would love to talk about them. Love you guys. I'll see you in the next video.